Chair will recognize Senator Lewis to make some opening remarks on the bill and on the pending new draft. Senator Lewis.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to you and to our colleagues and our guests. We just made it in time to kick this debate off in the morning, and I am very pleased to rise today in support of an act to promote student learning and mental health, which would make all of our public schools in the Commonwealth cell phone free. I know that all of us have heard about the many harms of young people being literally addicted to their cell phones and the growing problem with cell phone use at schools, in classrooms. There are a myriad of negative effects linked to this use of cell phones and other personal electronic devices in our schools, including worse academic performance, worse mental health conditions, poor relationship building and social skills, and in fact reduced safety during emergencies. According to Pew Research, 72% of high school teachers find cell phones to be a major problem in their classrooms. The bill before the Senate today was put together in the Education Committee based upon 7 bills that were filed by senators at the start of this session. And I am very grateful to each and every one of my colleagues who took the time to research this issue and to file legislation at the beginning of the session. By the way, I will note that last legislative session, there was not a single bill filed in the Education Committee addressing the issue of cell phone use in schools. So it just shows you how this issue has really exploded in the consciousness of the public, students, families, school administrators, and legislators. So I want to extend my gratitude to the senator from Truro. Thank you, and the work that he did in partnership with Attorney General Campbell to develop very strong legislation in this space. The senator from Fitchburg, the senator from Lynn, senator from Quincy, thank you, the senator from Weymouth, and the senator from Westfield. And note that it is a bipartisan group of senators that all filed legislation addressing the issue and the problem of cell phone use by students in public schools. All of these bills, there were similarities and some differences, and all of them were very helpful as the Education Committee dug into and researched and drafted the legislation that then was reported favorably to the Senate Ways and Means Committee. I want to thank the chair of the Ways and Means Committee and his staff who've done terrific work improving the bill even further and further listening to all of the stakeholders and strengthening the bill that is now pending before the Senate today. And finally, I want to extend my deepest appreciation and gratitude to Senate President Spilka for really being a champion of this issue and for setting out at the beginning of the session that this would be a priority for the state Senate to take up. The Senate President has often spoken about her conversations with her son, who is a high school teacher, I believe in New York City, and has shared with her on many occasions how the distraction of cell phones in the classroom really hinders the ability to teach and the ability for students to learn. So thank you very much to the Senate President for being a consistent champion on this issue. And then, in addition to thanking the Attorney General for her advocacy in this area and her team, I would also like to give a shout out and appreciation to Governor Healy. The governor has also on numerous occasions also voiced her support for taking action in this space. So let me just talk a little bit more about the need for this legislation. Again, I think this is something we all pretty much already understand, but just to make it very clear on the record why action is needed to remove cell phones and other personal electronic devices from our public schools. First and foremost is improve academic performance. When students are not distracted by phones during the school day, they learn better and they perform better academically. According to research from Ohio University, students, when they were not using cell phones, when they were not allowed in the classroom, they wrote down 62% more in their notes. They were better able to recall more detailed information they had learned, and in fact scored a full letter grade and a half higher on their tests compared to students who still had their cell phones with them in the classroom. So there's other research as well on this, but that's clearly one study that shows directly the impact on improving academic performance. Second reason we need the bill is to address students' social skills. When we've seen phone bans in place in schools in Massachusetts and in other parts of the country, they have led to less bullying, particularly less cyberbullying, and improved interaction among students and social skills. Less time on screens encourages more face-to-face conversations between students and their peers that can help increase strengthen their relationships, develop emotional intelligence, and create a stronger sense of community within our schools. Improved social skills lead to better collaboration and teamwork, which we all know is one of the critical skills that young people need to succeed in their careers after high school. Third reason we need this bill is to help address the crisis of mental health that we have been seeing in our schools. It was there before the COVID-19 pandemic, but as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic really worsened the impact on the mental health and well-being of so many of our young people. Many studies have linked cell phone use with worse mental health, less physical activity, poorer sleep, lower grades, more disruptive classroom behavior, increased incidence of anxiety and depression, and decreased self-esteem. A 3-year study from adolescence to emerging adulthood at Brigham Young University found a direct connection between excessive cell phone use and later incidents of mental health, especially depression. The fourth reason for why we should be passing this legislation is to improve school safety. We heard extensive testimony in the Education Committee when the bill had its public hearing, and also when we spoke with various stakeholders, that school safety experts find that student use of cell phones is a dangerous distraction during an emergency. Students can be looking at their phone or trying to listen to advice from parents or others that they're calling, rather than paying attention to trained school staff that are with them and trying to issue instructions for what students should do during that emergency. Also, cell phones allow disinformation to spread more easily and quickly. Emergency response systems can be disrupted, and in the most serious of cases, student locations can be shared with the light or audio from a phone, even potentially revealing a hiding place. So, bottom line, removing cell phones from classrooms will make our schools safer compared to the current status quo where students continue to have their phones with them during the school day. And then the final reason why we need this bill is to address job satisfaction, frankly, for our valued educators. Research has shown that teachers have higher job satisfaction when they work in schools that do restrict student access to cell phones during the school day. In fact, researchers from Auburn University studying the impact of a cell phone restriction policy found that teachers felt their work was more meaningful and they got more satisfaction and more enjoyment from their work, again, when cell phones were taken out of the classroom. We need more people to go into the teaching profession. We have a shortage of teachers, especially in some critical areas. And if this is one more way we can make the job experience better for our educators, then that's another good reason to take this action today in the Senate. In terms of the landscape in Massachusetts and nationally when it comes to this issue, the latest tally that we have seen is 33 other states have already enacted either laws or policies to ban, limit, or discourage cell phone use in schools. That includes California, Washington, and Minnesota. And there's approximately 24 states, so roughly half the states, already have statewide bans on cell phones in schools. So that would be similar to the bill pending before us today. And those states include New York, Florida, and Texas. Again, you can see here it's a very bipartisan issue. We have both blue states and red states where they've taken action to get cell phones and other personal electronic devices, out of our public schools. Florida was actually the first state to enact a statewide policy on cell phones, and that was back in 2023. The majority of the states that have acted, it really has been in the last 2 years. So, and this is happening fast and furious where other states are looking at this and taking up the issue. A National Education Association study found that 83% of their members, teachers and other school staff, support prohibiting cell phone use during the entire school day. Not often you see a statistic where there's that much agreement, right? 83% of NEA members support getting cell phones out of schools. Here in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents estimates that about 80% of our school districts of all different types, urban, rural, suburban, large, small, about 80% already have some type of cell phone policy in place. Now, they're obviously not all the same. They have different varying degrees of how much they restrict cell phone use in schools, but it is something that most of our school districts already, as I'm sure you're well aware, have already been tackling this issue. And we have strong support, and I would say growing support, in fact, across Massachusetts from teachers, from students, from administrators, principals, and superintendents, from advocates, from state leaders, from our two major teacher unions, the MTA and the AFT-Mass, and other stakeholder groups in support of the legislation pending before the Senate today. So let me just describe, what this bill will do if it were to be signed into law. The bill would establish a requirement that all public schools, K-12 public schools in Massachusetts, implement at the local level a policy that would restrict the possession and use of students, possession and use by students of cell phones and other personal electronic devices for the entire school day. This is often referred to as bell to bell, from the first bell in the morning to the last bell in the afternoon. So that would include, obviously, the time students spend in classrooms, but also the time when they're passing between classrooms, when they are in recess, when they're eating lunch. And I'll speak more in a moment about why we think it's important to have it be a bell-to-bell ban rather than just limiting it to when students are in classrooms. There will be allowable exceptions for our school districts to include in their policies. There's 3 of them that are listed in the bill. That includes students who have a disability and where it is noted in the student's individualized education plan, their IEP or their 504 plan, that a cell phone or some other device is needed by the student during the school day to help manage their disability. So that is a case where the student would be able to then continue to have and use a device during the school day. The second exception is a student who has a documented medical reason, again, for why a device may be needed. One of the use cases that we have heard is students who have diabetes, and where there is the device, whether that's a cell phone or another device, that is used by the student to help manage their diabetes. So again, that would be a case where that would be an exception to the prohibition, and the student in that case would be able to keep and use the device during the school day. And then the third exception in the bill is for students that need to leave the campus. Obviously, this would be high school students, not middle school, but they would have, they're leaving the campus for other educational opportunities. That could be early college, dual enrollment, vocational technical training. It might also be like an internship that they're doing. but those type of opportunities where there is a need for the student to still have use of their device. So that's the basic outline of the bill, requiring every district to have a policy, bell-to-bell restriction, again, allowing those, with the allowance of those 3 exceptions. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, will be required to provide guidance, recommendations, and importantly, a model policy to assist school districts with developing and implementing their own policies. Districts won't be required to use DESE's model policy, but if it's helpful, they will be able to adopt the model policy or modify it as they see fit. DESE's model policy may include some additional case-specific and targeted exceptions if DESE, after getting public input and speaking with experts, determines that there's a compelling need for any additional exceptions beyond the 3 that I already identified to be permissible. If DESE were to determine that and include any additional exceptions in their model policy, then school districts in their own local policies would be able to include those exceptions if they choose to do so. All schools will be required in their policy to include 1 or more methods for parents or guardians to be able to reach their student during the school day if there is a good reason that they need to speak to them. And also the other way around, if a student has a compelling reason, compelling need to speak with their parent or guardian during the school day, there must be a method for the student to do so. School districts will be required to notify students and families about their policy addressing cell phone use every year, and that policy will need to be made publicly available online and also shared with DESE. In terms of timing of implementation of the law, of the bill should it become law, DESE will be required to solicit public input and then to provide guidance and their model policy within 180 days of the bill being signed into law. And then school districts will be required to develop and have their cell phone policy in place and be ready to enforce it for the start of the 2026-2027 school year. So not for the school year starting in about a month, but the school year that will start in just over a year. Let me briefly address some of the concerns or objections that we have heard from some folks as we have been working on this bill through the legislative process. One concern we have heard is the concern about parents or guardians wanting to be able to reach their student during the school day. We understand that this does come up. There can be very good reasons why a parent or guardian does need to get some information to their child or have a question or whatever the case may be. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, that's why we have a requirement in the bill that each school district will have to accommodate a parent or guardian being able to reach their student. Again, not just for any reason, but if there's a legitimate need to be able to speak with their child, there will be a method for them to do so, and vice versa. If the student also needs to reach their parent or guardian during the school day, there will be a way for them to do so. And this can be as simple as how it often still works in some schools, and certainly used to work, where a parent or guardian can call the main office, and then they will connect the student either in the classroom, or the student will come to the main office and will be able to speak with their parent. Second area that sometimes comes up as a possible concern is the issue of some people who feel that if there were to be an emergency in the school, that they want to know that they can be in touch with their child in the case of that emergency. And I totally understand the instinct here. I'm a parent, as I know many of you are, and totally the last thing you want if there were, God forbid, some kind of an emergency is not feeling like you can be in touch with your child. But the reality is, as I said in my remarks earlier, when you speak with school safety experts, it actually makes students and teachers and other school staff less safe in an emergency situation if students are all on their cell phones, you know, texting, looking at updates, potentially getting disinformation, not listening to the instructions that they are getting from their teacher or other school staff, which is what we really want them paying attention to. So again, I understand where this is coming from, this concern, but in fact, it is actually better for student and school staff safety if we actually removed cell phones from schools. Then the third issue that will come up from time to time is whether restrictions should only apply to when the students are actually in the classroom versus the entire school day. And, you know, I understand some of the schools in Massachusetts that have already acted, their policies only apply to classroom time, whereas there are some other districts that do already implement a bell-to-bell ban. We looked very closely in the Education Committee at this to see which of these approaches really makes the most sense and has the greatest benefit for our students. And what we found unequivocally is that it is better for all the reasons I outlined earlier in terms of academic performance, in terms of improving students' social skills and collaboration, in terms of addressing student mental health, if you get the cell phones and other devices out of schools entirely. Just limiting it to classrooms is helpful, but doesn't really realize all the benefits that are possible here. And we can speak more to this. I suspect there will be one or two other senators in their remarks who may address this issue specifically, because again, there's some very compelling research and anecdotes that speak to the reason why you want the prohibition to be bell-to-bell versus just during classroom time only. I should also clarify that nothing in this bill will prevent the use of technology for legitimate educational purposes. We are not seeking to get, laptops or tablets or other technology, out of classrooms where they're being used for legitimate educational purposes. So they will still be able to be used that way. We do expect that students will not be using those devices for non-educational purposes. They shouldn't be using them to be surfing the internet or on social media or texting. But as long as they're being used for actual legitimate educational purposes, as directed by their teachers, that's fine. This bill does in no way would compromise that. So, in conclusion, I want to thank the many students, parents, teachers, other school staff, school administrators, especially principals and superintendents, school counselors, and researchers, academics, stakeholder groups, and especially my fellow legislators and legislative staff who've been involved in working on this issue, advocating for it, educating us, and pushing to bring this legislation forward to where it is today. So specifically, thank you to Attorney General Andrea Campbell and her whole team at the Attorney General's office, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, our two major teacher unions, the Massachusetts Teachers Association and the American Federation of Teachers Massachusetts. Thank you to the Massachusetts Phone-Free Schools Coalition, also the Distraction-Free Schools Policy Project, Smartphone-Free Childhood, another organization doing great work in this space, all of the legislators, all the senators who've worked on this issue. Again, especially big thank you to Senator Rodericks and the team at Ways and Means, and to Senate President Spilka for her longtime passion and leadership on this issue. I want to thank my staff, especially Dennis Burke and Emily Reynolds and Paul Albright for their great work in collaboration with other Senate offices and the Senate Ways and Means team and the Senate President's staff who've worked on this. Thank you very much. And then again, finally, all the members of the public who testified at the public hearing in support of this bill and have reached out to my office and many other offices to provide their insight and feedback. I look forward to the debate today, and I hope we can all come together with a bipartisan vote to support our students' health, their academic performance, and their overall well-being with the passage of this bill. And I ask when a vote is taken today, it be taken by call of the yeas and nays. Thank you, Madam President.